Okay, let's just dive right in. When you hear the name Tom Holland, your mind probably jumps straight to a certain red and blue suit swinging through the streets of New York, right? But in today's explainer, we're going to unpack the incredible evolution of a record-breaking talent who spent the last 2 decades deliberately proving that he is, well, way more than just a superhero.
So who exactly is the man behind the mask? It's honestly so easy to get caught up in that lovable, friendly neighborhood public persona, isn't it? But I want to challenge you today to look right past that. What we're really going to explore here is the deep discipline, the intense physical training, and the surprisingly risky career choices of the actual performer pulling the strings.
And the reason we need to talk about him right now? It comes down to one absolutely staggering number: $9.9 billion. Yep, you heard that right. That is the worldwide box office gross of his films as a lead actor. It's a truly massive figure, and it completely sets the stakes for this entire story. I mean, very few actors of his generation, or honestly any generation, command that kind of cinematic real estate. But to understand how he built a nearly $10 billion empire, we've got to go back to the very beginning.
Which brings us to part 1, stage to screen.
Born in London in 1996, Tom Holland actually didn't grow up dreaming of Hollywood blockbusters. There's a pretty stark contrast between where he started and where he is today. Back between 2008 and 2010, at just 12 years old, he was starring in Billy Elliot the Musical in London. And we're talking about a grueling schedule here. 8 shows a week of singing, acting, and dancing, all before he even finished secondary school. But here is the massive takeaway. That intense childhood background in gymnastics and hip-hop, it perfectly built the physical foundation he'd later use to do his own intricate stunts as Spider-Man, practically without breaking a sweat.
Moving right along to Section 2, breaking into film. You know, there's this common misconception that Marvel just plucked him out of total obscurity. But in reality, his film debut was back in 2012 with The Impossible. It's this harrowing disaster drama about a family surviving the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. And critics and audiences were absolutely floored by the heavy emotional weight he carried as just a teenager. From there, it was a rapid, undeniable ascent. How I Live Now in 2013. The Historical Adventure in the Heart of the Sea in 2015. The Lost City of Z in 2016. He was quietly stacking up a dramatic resume that actors twice his age would absolutely envy.
And that leads us to Section 3, Becoming Spider-Man.
The audition that changed absolutely everything for him wasn't your everyday casting call. This was a highly competitive global search involving hundreds of young actors, all vying for that singular chance to launch into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But the crucial point here is how he actually approached the character. When he debuted in Civil War and then headlined Spider-Man: Homecoming, audiences finally got a Peter Parker who felt like a genuine, real-life teenager. He was eager, he was a little awkward, and he was undeniably in way over his head. This universally praised portrayal led to some incredible milestones. He won the 2017 BAFTA Rising Star Award and made history as the youngest actor to ever headline an MCU film.
Let's look at how this builds financially, because his sequels took a massive leap. Homecoming was huge, sure, but Far From Home cleanly crossed the billion-dollar mark globally. And then No Way Home? Wow, that film didn't just cross $1 billion, it was an absolute cultural, multiverse phenomenon and the single highest-grossing film of its year. At that point, he became the undisputed anchor of the world's biggest franchise.
Which brings us to our 4th section, stepping out of the suit.
So, what do you actually do when you're resting at the very top of the blockbuster world? Well, you make a deliberate choice to seek out riskier projects. On one side, you have the squeaky clean billion-dollar hero. But on the exact opposite side, the gritty, dramatic actor. In 2020, he took on the dense, unsettling crime drama The Devil All the Time. And then the very next year, he starred in Sherry, taking on a bleak, demanding role that pushed him into psychological territory miles away from anything he'd ever done before. It was essentially his way of telling the industry, hey, I'm an actor first, not just a superhero.
Let's move to Section 5, Expanding the Repertoire.
His relentless work ethic started bleeding into entirely different corners of the entertainment industry too. Just looking at his variety here, you see voice work with animated hits like Spies in Disguise and Pixar's Onward. In the realm of blockbusters, he proved he could carry non-Marvel franchises with Uncharted and the epic 2026 film The Odyssey. But I really want you to focus on television for a second. He actually started in the BBC's Wolf Hall back in 2015. But his turn in Apple TV Plus's 2023 psychological thriller, The Crowded Room, that demanded an intense, draining level of emotional complexity.
With all of this relentless momentum, the wider business world absolutely took notice.
He was named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 Europe list in 2019. It's a quick but super powerful reminder that his growing influence was being recognized off-screen just as much as his acting was dominating on-screen.
Finally, we reach Section 6, Life Beyond the Spotlight. To truly understand a person's trajectory, we have to look at what anchors them in reality, and I absolutely love this detail. In 2024, he returned to the West End for a revival of Romeo and Juliet. The crucial point here is the poetic symmetry happening. Think back to that kid in 2008 stomping his feet as Billy Elliot. He returned to that very same theatrical world, not as an aspiring child dancer, but as a commanding, mature stage presence, taking on one of Shakespeare's most iconic characters. It's just a perfect full-circle moment.
And speaking of things that ground him, there is his most talked about, yet somehow most guarded role. He and his Spider-Man co-star Zendaya built this profound bond entirely under the microscope of fame, yet they somehow managed to keep their relationship highly private for nearly a decade. They shielded it from the intense Hollywood spotlight, ultimately culminating in their confirmed marriage in 2026. In an industry literally defined by chaos, that deeply protected romance serves as such a vital anchor for him off-screen.
Which leaves us with one pretty provocative question. If this is just his first 2 decades, what is next? We've gone from a West End stage to indie disaster dramas, from web-slinging pop culture phenomenons to gritty streaming thrillers, racking up a $9.9 billion box office empire along the way. And here is the truly crazy part. He is still only in his 30s. His career has been entirely defined by a relentless willingness to keep evolving long after the world decided who he was supposed to be. I don't know about you, but I am absolutely fascinated to see where his endless potential takes him next. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and definitely keep your eyes peeled for whatever stage or screen he decides to conquer.